On this week's Monday Mailbag podcast, the Padres finally defeat their inner demon. Woo, the Colorado Rockies. That's right, guys. Finally, the Padres winning a series against the Rockies that they've had a lot of trouble with, thanks to a nice start from Matt Waldron. Martin Perez making a solid debut, some good offensive performances, but I still got beef that we're going to talk about and answering some of your questions and comments from the week because it is the Mailbag episode. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, August 5th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or if you just want updates on the show at LO_Padres. And of course, go check out my work over at Just Baseball. You can go check that out, guys. It is a lovely website where I also host a podcast called Baseball vs. the World. Subscribe to that wherever you get your podcasts from. Today's episode, guys, of course, it's the weekend recap. And we love doing a weekend recap, especially because the weekend recaps have been nothing but joy for the last several weeks, in fact, and it is even more of a joy. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but dare I say this is the most joyous one because the Padres finally vanquished the team that they've been struggling against. It's not done for sure. They're going to be playing them again soon, but hopefully this is a sign that the curse is being lifted against the Colorado Rockies. Going to be talking a lot about this series and then answering some of your questions at the end. And there were some good questions and comments that I found, hidden in the giant pile that I have, I guess you could say. But before we get into that, guys, let me just tell you today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Go check that out, folks. Let us begin with Sunday's game, a game that they had to have, man. They had to have it. And they don't have to have it in like the typical, schedule sense. It's not a playoff game or anything like that. But really, you have this series against this team that you, for some reason, haven't just been bad against this year. Which is why I kind of bring this up a lot because there's a lot of teams that are just going to struggle. This isn't football where, sometimes losing to a bad team really is indicative of where that team is. Sometimes baseball, you're just going to lose games, 162 of them. And every year you're going to find, I guarantee you the Dodgers probably have a weird record against the Tigers or something like that, right? Or someone in their division, the Cincinnati Reds, right? I bet you they have a bad record, or you guys get my point. And the Padres, though, it hasn't just been this year. It's been many years beforehand, 9-10 records, and 8-10 record. Last year was the only time they were good against them. It's not like they overwhelmingly dominated the Rockies either. So it's just been this team that's always given them a tough go of things. So heading into this game, final game of the 3-game set, it is lovely to see that one Sir Matt Waldron came through 5 2/3, only giving up 1 earned run on 2 hits, 2 walks, and 7 Ks. Some really nasty Ks at some point too, by the way. 5 whiffs on his knuckleball on the night. Looked really on. It was pretty good. He was giving up some fly balls that I didn't like. There was a little bit of close ones. David Peralta makes a nice catch in this one too. David Peralta has himself a very nice game, by the way. I love that Peralta. Every time we're get this guy off the team, he does something. I swear every time, and I tweeted about this too. I swear every time, whether it be a game-winning hit, whether it be a home run, whatever it is, and in this case, showing off some leather, right? So love that from David Peralta. But otherwise, the only mistake he makes is to Brenton Doyle of the Rockies, who's basically been their best player all year. So frankly, I'm totally cool with that, right? The best player on the Rockies, kind of the only one that really steps up in this game for the Rockies. And Waldron looks solid. I mean, I'm going to be writing about Matt Waldron for Just Baseball if you guys are curious. That will be probably out by, I guess, tomorrow by the time you are watching Tuesday's episode. Just really impressive stuff. He doesn't go 6 innings. I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought that they were going to keep him in at least for a little bit longer. Adrian Morejon actually comes in and gives up a run, which was unfortunate to Jacob Stallings, of all people. For people who don't remember, Jacob Stallings is not very good. Oh, wow. My bad. He's doing better this year. 820 OPS with the Rocket? What? This guy had a 565 OPS last year and 584 the year before that. That's very weird. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But whatever. You guys get my point. Brenton Doyle, kind of the best player on this team. Jacob Stallings also apparently doing quite well too. So not going to hate too much. And bottom line is this was not about, the defense. This was not about the pitching. This was a game in which the Padres offense stepped up big time after the fact that they, took a lead in the bottom of second thanks to a double from our guy, Jackson Merrill. They give the Brenton Doyle home run, and then Kyle Higashioka hits a home run, and then Jurickson Profar hits a home run. And that wasn't it. They win by a final score of 10-2, thanks to a 3-run shot from David Peralta, which was very, very lovely. Manny Machado getting a double that allowed Jurickson Profar to score, who, of course, got on base again. Jake Cronenworth gets a double in this game. The game was totally out of reach at this point. It was 7-2 in the bottom of the 8th. It didn't really matter, and this is still the Rockies we're talking about here. Although, granted, if people remember a few months ago when they had that 9-4 implosion of the bullpen, I think it was like Yuki Matsui, Kolek, and some others that just completely exploded. Even still, it's just nice to see Jake Cronenworth getting in some RBIs here. 2-run RBI from him, and then Manny Machado gets another RBI to close things out. I say that for Cronenworth because he's been bad for a while now. He's been the kind of poster child of struggling against lefties, I think, for the Padres this year. He's still got a 725 OPS. Like, he's still been good for a lot of this year. He's still been better than he was, at least at the very minimum, last year. But you're starting to see he's really declining. He's not hitting the ball quite as well as he used to. It seems like opponents are zeroing in on what's going on and where you should pitch him. Still a good player, and he still had a pretty good bounce-back season, at least for the first half at the very minimum. But I once again want to just explain that if there's one positive for Jake Cronenworth, it's that if they are to lose Ha-Seong Kim in free agency, which I think is very possible, and I think, frankly, that they might be prepared for that and be okay with it. The good news about that, and I know this isn't a topic that's relevant to exactly right now, but the good news is that you move Xander Bogaerts over to shortstop. He's at least okay, not amazing there. And then you move Jake Cronenworth to second base, where Cronenworth has shown in the past that he can give you a lot of value defensively. That would leave first base up to grab. So we'll have to see how that pans out, but just letting everybody know that, I'm still on my opinion that, Jake Cronenworth moving to second base could be really, really good for his value. And he'll be like a 5-win player, or maybe not a 5-win player, but a 4-win player, because he's done it before whenever he's played second base. I don't know if he has quite the power upside to make up for the fact that you can't really produce as much value at first base, defensively, at least. So I feel like it's like putting it's like hiding your prize stallion for the Kentucky Derby, but then using it for some random race in Wisconsin or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense? Not my best analogy, but still, just to finish off, guys, Luis Arraez 1 for 5 in this game, still yet to have his multi-hit frenzy. He's been getting hits, but he hasn't been getting enough of them, so I'm still hoping that he can step it up. Only 1 extra base hit in his last bunch of games. Jurickson Profar, again, amazing in this game, 2 for 4, 3 runs scored, RBI double, home run, a walk. I mean, the guy is just an absolute beast. 150 6 WRC plus this year. Doesn't make any sense. This is stuff of legends. Like I said, Cronenworth, 2 for 4 in this one with 2 RBIs and a walk. Manny Machado, 2 for 4 in this one with an RBI double as well. Bogaerts, 2 for 4. Hit the ball pretty well too, by the way. Xander Bogaerts continues to rake. His WRC plus, I think, on the season is approaching 100, so he's officially getting back to that average sort of rate. Let me see right now if the live stats can give me anything. He's officially, yes, at a 101 WRC plus on the season. He's hitting 275 with a 313 on base. He's not slugging a lot. We know that. But at the very minimum, his bounce back, his regression to the mean, perhaps, has been so helpful, especially given the absence of Tatis, and especially given the little bit of decline we just talked about with Jake Cronenworth. So love that. Merrill has the 1 hit that we talked about. David Peralta has a nice game. I did see one comment on Twitter. I forgot who it was that was like, we have to say Ha-Seong Kim's the worst player in the Padres. I don't know how many times we have to go over this, right? And we're not going to spend too much time on frankly, just a dumb troll sort of comment. If you go by wins above replacement, Ha-Seong Kim is 4th on the Padres, only behind Tatis, Merrill, and Jurickson Profar. And the big reason for that, his offense has been bad lately, though. I will say his offense is significantly worse than last year, and it's been bad for a while, and I kind of haven't paid attention to it, but 98 WRC plus on the season, 112 last year. So he's still been a good player, but he has taken a step back, I think. He's just hasn't been as lucky with some of his fly ball luck, and he's not quite just getting on base as much as he used to. I will say BABIP of 252 is significantly lower than it should be usually for a player of his speed. So I think maybe we could see a little bit of a run come along the way, but it's not like he hits the ball too hard. And the 17 home runs last year might have been a misnomer. I don't think that was a sign that he was tapping into power, but more that he just hit the ball at a better place given the Petco Park dimensions, and that he just happened to, lift enough of them to get for 17 home runs. So still okay with him though, because he is a defensive wizard at the very minimum. Love that. But if you are one of those people like me who's like, I don't like extending utility defensive players like this, welcome to my side. Finally, you guys see what I'm talking about with Kim, who I still love, of course, so we're not going to talk too much about him. But we still got to talk about the rest of this series. We're going to talk about the one game that the Padres did lose because it had, I have some beef. What can I say? Your boy has some beef. He does. And it must be discussed. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second, guys. But first, we must discuss the legendary folks. Here's the thing about summer. It stinks. We all know it. All right? This is me talking, not our sponsor. We all know it. All right, everybody, stop pretending you like summer. But if you are one of those people that likes summer because you're a fool, well, you got to keep hydrated, folks. And when you're taking in America's pastime, this baseball sport that we love, this very silly sport that we love, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, Liquid IV. They go together. Baseball and summer, and you're going to need it. You got to be hydrated for all this stuff. It's very dangerous out here sometimes. And what I love is on top of all the good health benefits and whatnot, they've got a bunch of different flavors. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of course, Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Doesn't that sound delicious? I know your mouth's watering just after I said that. And you can find all your other favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada. It's just tear, pour, live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. That's right, folks. It is powered by LIV Hydra Science, folks. An optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. You feel like you're drinking the nectar of the gods, folks. Let me tell you. So go check that out. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free as well. And because you're listening to this podcast, I got a little bit of a deal for you. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. You can get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB. Just as simple as that at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Go check it out. And just like that, folks, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast. And I teased it before the break. Here we're thriving and vibing as always, but we got to talk about my beef. And that's Friday's game. And no, you might be thinking, well, Javi, all right, they lost one. It's okay. They still won the series, though. But I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm going to be a jerk, a real jerk for a second. The Padres lose the Friday game by a score of 5-2. And it was not because of Randy Vasquez, which is what you would think. Instead, it was the fact that the Padres couldn't really hit against Austin Gomber, who had one of his best starts, not of the season. He's actually been a little bit better lately, just a tiny bit better lately. But even still, decent start for him. 7 innings, 2 earned runs. I think the 7 innings was the annoying thing. 7 innings, 2 earned runs on 5 hits, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. But believe it or not, no, it's not the offense that annoys me. It's not. They didn't produce. It happens. But Manny Machado had a home run. Donovan Solano had a home run. Love that. It is not that, though. Instead, it was the Padres bullpen. Jeremiah Estrada gets tagged with the loss. His worst outing in quite a long time, by the way, raising his ERA to 3.19. It's actually been going up a little bit as of late. Because of this, it was 2.6 heading into that night, and then he just gets absolutely torched by the Rockies of all people. So that was really frustrating. But even still, Jeremiah Estrada has been very, very good, and I think that all of his peripherals and everything still suggest that he's a great pitcher. So don't worry about that. But, just throwing it out there. And then Alec Jacob comes in. He goes 2 1/3. He does give up 1 earned run, but like I said, 2 1/3. He gets 3 strikeouts as well. Not that bad. Well, basically, I'm using this as my springboard because I want to be a jerk for a second. I just want to talk about how this is a little bit of a preview of why I was very critical of the Padres trade deadline. A bullpen is very important. Very important. And I've had some people disagree with me. One person actually reached out. It's very important. You got to have a good bullpen. I like Alec Jacob. I like all the guys that they got in a vacuum. And I have no problem with the relievers they acquired. My thing is, this is why I was critical. Because while, yes, it was the Padres' probably biggest overall team need, I still don't like giving up so much and trusting so much in relievers. I hate relievers, if I can be frank with you. I love their talent, I love their ability as players, but they are the most maddening people in the world sometimes, because it's like, how are you, a guy who throws 90 with movement and all this stuff, and you have rest, and all you have to do is throw an inning? How are you getting torched for 3 earned runs, right? And I sometimes get annoyed because some of the analytics nerds will tell you, oh, the bullpen's actually more important than the starting pitching and blah blah blah. No, it's not. Okay, starting pitching is still awesome and very much needed if you actually want to go anywhere. If you want to win your cute little 90 games and get bounced in the playoffs every year, yeah, fine. Okay, invest in bullpen. But my thing is, this is why I was critical. Because in this game, Jeremiah Estrada gives up 3 runs, and we're going to skip ahead for just a second. In Saturday's game, in which the Padres barely hold on, we'll talk about that in a little bit, Tanner Scott, their new acquisition, actually gives up an earned run in that one, despite striking out 2 batters. So I'm just saying, relievers are very volatile. And I think that Jeremiah Estrada, while he's not one of the new ones they acquired, I understand that. I'm just using this as a springboard to say, this is why I was critical. Because if you are trading for starting pitchers, if you're trading for batters, all this stuff, I just don't feel that crazy about it. And for you to give up so much of your future, I think, for relief options, especially in the case of Scott, who's a rental, that's why I was critical of it. I'm always going to be critical of giving up way too many prospects for relievers. Now, thankfully, here's the thing, and I think a lot of people have been talking about this. What the Astros did, giving for a rental of Yusei Kikuchi and giving up some of their best prospects, kind of took the cake for worst trade deadline deal, at least in my opinion. But even still, I'm just saying it makes me a little bit worried. However, you did get a little bit of a preview of Martin Perez's potential, which we're going to talk about. First, really quickly though, aside from that, there's really not much to talk about in Saturday's game, if I'm being totally honest with you, right? Not much. Jake Cronenworth still slumping. We just didn't get the right hits at the right time. Manny Machado going 2 for 4 was great. Just genuinely not all that much. All right. The more stuff to talk about will be found in the mailbag section when we get to it. But in terms of Saturday's game, because I want to keep today's episode mostly positive, they get a lovely start from Martin Perez, folks. Oh man, yes they did. 6 innings, 1 earned run on 3 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts, tying his season high. Really good stuff. Martin Perez, heading into the start, had a 5.2 ERA. Now is at 4.96. Here's what I thought was interesting. Despite the fact that I was just telling you of why I was really upset, not really upset, I wasn't livid, why I was critical of the Padres trade deadline is an over emphasis on the bullpen and giving up a lot of assets, even if you don't think the assets are great for bullpen relievers, right? And I just don't trust them nearly as much. I'm sorry, I just never will. But let me tell you, one thing about the deadline that could be exciting is the fact that the Padres didn't really get too much starting pitching, which I really wanted Jack Flaherty. Don't get me wrong. I thought that would have been awesome. I thought that would have been a bulldog that you could throw in your rotation if this team does make the playoffs. But even still, maybe they might have seen something, and maybe they know something about the starting pitching that will be available for them down the line. Maybe they know. I mean, they traded Adam Mazur already, which I think I messed up. What some YouTube commenter, you let me know. That's what I meant. I meant that he was traded away, obviously. But, you're not going to rely on him anymore. Maybe you won't be relying on Randy Vasquez too much because Joe Musgrove is doing a rehab assignment and Martin Perez was really, really good, as it wasn't just, he did get good against the Rockies. Maybe the Padres see something. And I'm going to cite this. He made his Padres debut and his usage was different. Curveball usage was up, toss a sinker much less, and he set a season high with 15 whiffs on the day. So, it is just one start, and it is against a bad team. But for me, it's not like there's no statistical nothing behind this start. That's why I'm looking at it. And it might be exciting, and it might be a reason why maybe the Padres were like, you know what? We can turn Perez into like a decent, okay starter, or at least someone who's better than Randy Vasquez. And then maybe we're getting Musgrove back. You know what I mean? Maybe we're getting him or Yu Darvish back. That's my hope. Don't get me wrong. They had a couple hard hit balls. Hunter Goodman hit an absolute bomb in the 3rd inning. Really, really killed it. 106.5 miles per hour. Like, that thing was a bomb. But other than that, really, really solid stuff. He did get lucky on one Brenton Doyle ground out, 610 expected batting average. But other than that, I was really, really encouraged, I think. Right? I was really encouraged by what we saw from Martin Perez. And if he can just be okay, 9 whiffs on that changeup. If there's something different happening here, right? keep an eye out. I'm very curious to see this next start. Hey, look, he was good 2 years ago. Was it a little bit, what's the word for like fake? Was it a little bit, I don't know. I'm forgetting what the word is right now on the top of my head. Maybe. Was a little bit of fool's gold, maybe. But something tells me maybe they know. We're going to get Musgrove back, and maybe they know we can turn Perez into something. And Xander Bogaerts actually was interviewed, which I thought was very illuminating after one of the games. And I retweeted this on the Locked On Padres account. He had mentioned, let me see if I can find it right here. He says, Xander Bogaerts and pitching coach Ruben Niebla after Martin Perez's debut. The moment he, as in Perez, got here, I said, hey, you see Ruben right there? Everything he says, you just do. I've seen this man work so hard with his pitchers, and I know how much he cares for those guys. So, hope, folks, is what I'm telling you. Can they turn this guy into just an okay pitcher who will help you in the back end of your rotation as other guys get ready, other guys get back, and you just look to keep getting, more wins in that column? I'm just saying, it's exciting. It's very, very exciting. So this is one thing that I do think was encouraging from the trade deadline, even if I didn't like the assets that they did give up. But nonetheless, guys, that's a lot of whiffs, man. It's a lot of whiffs for a guy with a 5.2 ERA in his first start immediately. Let Niebla cook, man. Let him cook. And folks, you're going to have to let me cook because I'm going to be answering some of your questions and comments. Actually, it's more like letting you guys cook in a second, guys. But first, let me just talk to you about our good friends over at Prize Picks, folks. And we love Prize Picks here on this here Locked On Padres podcast because it is the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll on in, folks. That's what I love about Prize Picks. Pretty simple. And let me tell you, with Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. All the storylines going on there, man. Let me tell you, it's really good stuff. I love it. The basketball games were great yesterday. It was really good stuff. As I just hear a bug buzz by me, and that freaked me out. But don't worry. You know what won't freak you out, guys? Prize Picks, because they also have some awesome little promotions for you, from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And they'll have all sorts of new promotions. They've got a community tab with all these different, personalities in there and stuff like that. Prize Picks is the ultimate hub. They've got everything. Oh my God, that's a big bug. That scared me. Oh my God. This is an incredible ad read. What can I say, folks? Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Go check that out, guys. This is amazing. I'm going to get a lot of comments on this. But seriously, download Prize Picks today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And just like that, folks, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing into what everybody likes the most, which is the mailbag section. Let's talk about some of your questions and comments, folks, starting with my guy, as always. He's always coming in clutch with the questions. Rama Murdy asks, question for Monday's show. If you had to pick the NL Rookie of the Year, do you pick Paul Skeens or Jackson Merrill? I think Merrill has been so much more valuable than Skeens. What do you think? This is a great question. Because on the one hand, I'm tempted to be like, well, obviously, and there's a lot of reasons for why it should be Jackson Merrill, because Jackson Merrill, first and foremost, is a position player playing center field, a very valuable position. And you love that, right? Like, this is something that you very much need, and it is very much very important to this team. This is a team that just lost Juan Soto, right? You bring in the pressure of it all. You have to replace Juan Soto. You have to replace Trent Grisham. You are needed to be good. And for him to be good at such a young age, too, changing position. That's the other thing. This guy was a shortstop once upon a time. So for him to move there, that is mightily, mightily impressive, guys. So I really do think that he absolutely has a case to be made for Rookie of the Year. And again, I'm always going to, at least usually always going to say, hey, the position player is usually always more valuable, right? He's got 2.5 wins above replacement, 115 WRC plus this season, or I'm sorry, 116 WRC plus this season. He's been great. As good you can ask for out of a rookie at such a young age. However, Paul Skeens, to me, is the Rookie of the Year. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, his stats are basically impeachable. Right, this is a guy with a 33.3% strikeout rate and only a 5.2% walk rate. His ERA is sitting at 1.9. His expected ERA is 2.5. His FIP is at 2.65, and his xFIP is at 2.5. So this is not a fluke. And every other day, we are getting alerts, and I'm not talking about his fame level because of his famous girlfriend. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about we are getting alerts every other day about him doing stuff that we haven't seen since rookie pitchers of like Clemens and DeGrom and Pedro. Like, we're getting numbers and we're getting all-timer stuff. Jackson Merrill is having a very good season. But to me, what Paul Skeens is doing, you just don't see very often out of this position, especially in your rookie year. So that's what I think is the difference. What we're seeing with Jackson Merrill is a very good rookie season, but what we're seeing with Paul Skeens, it's genuinely kind of historic for him to be this good this quickly. So for me, it's Skeens. If you want to go by F4, by the way, which I don't like for pitchers, he's only 0.1 behind Jackson Merrill, right? And he's actually pitched in less starts. He's only gotten 80 innings. So, hey, if you don't want to make the take that I think Jackson Merrill should get it because he's played like all season as opposed to Paul Skeens, that's okay. But for me, I just keep getting stats every other day. I don't have any off the top of my head, but all the strikeout stuff, it's just way too rare. You don't see seasons like this from rookie pitchers. Even DeGrom's rookie year, I'm pretty sure wasn't this incredible. And DeGrom's rookie year was very, very good, by the way, for the Mets. I'm actually going to pull it up right now, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about here. His first season, ERA of 2.69. His strikeout rate was, let me see here, 25.5% and 7.6% walk rate. Paul Skeens has been better. So to me, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at how memorable this is, how impactful it is. Even if it is on a team that doesn't make the playoffs, I still think it's Paul Skeens. What he's doing is just too unprecedented and puts him in too much legendary company for me to ignore it. Next question, though. It was a great question, though, Ron Murray. I really appreciate it. Next question. Let me tell you, this is a good one. Let me tell you. David Lamper at Gen Zod's Army responded to me on Twitter going, why is Cronenworth hitting fourth? Ugh. This is a fair question, and here's the thing. I think fundamentally it's actually a fairly simple answer, and that's that they want to mix up the righty-lefty. This has been a lineup that has a lot of righties, and you want to make sure you have a lefty in there to mix things up. Otherwise, depending on the game, teams can just better prepare starting pitchers, or they can better prepare their relief pitchers. They can throw in a guy knowing, hey, it's all lefties after this, so we can bring in a righty or a righty-lefty, whatever the split is that works for them. So you have to be able to have someone who hits a little bit better against another type of arm. I will say that I think at some point they might have to ignore it a little bit because Cronenworth really has been struggling for a while now. Not like he's drawing an impressive walk rate either against lefties, which he's been struggling against. On the year, let me see if I can pull it up right now. He's got an OPS of 523 against lefties as opposed to 814 against righties. So I think that what we could see down the line if he doesn't figure it out is maybe a little bit of, maybe he'll hit lower in the lineup. Maybe they move up a Merrill on some days. Right? Now, Merrill is not great against both sides either, but he's also a rookie, so it's fine. But I'm just saying, I think it's lineup differentiation. You can't just have all righties going back and back and back and back, especially at the bottom of the lineup. That's what Merrill's for. He mixes up the bottom of the lineup. So for me, I think we might see, if he continues to struggle, maybe if it's a lefty on the mound, they might move him down in the order, but they still want to kind of do the mix and match thing. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see also when Tatis gets back if they change this. But remember, it worked at the beginning of the season, and this is exactly why, because they differentiated it. But still a great question, and if anybody else has their own insight, feel free to add on. This one, just a comment from @oldmanGregH says, Padres gave up a lot of prospects to get relievers. I believe Preller had to load up the offers to get them with a lot of teams looking for back-end relievers and few sellers. Also, Lesko and Snelling were dropping in value with brutal minor league seasons. So I will say two things. You raise a great point, and I think it is the best retort against my criticism of the Padres so far. I do think, yes, for sure, that's probably why they had to give up so much. But you can't get gypped by that. Obviously, that's what's going to happen, and teams are going to bid you up, or you're going to bid yourself up, et cetera, and that's just, it depends on what the market is. I understand it was not enough sellers, I think, on the market, and not a lot of relievers. A lot of teams wanted it. I get it, but still, it can be irresponsible to completely mortgage your future for a 1 year, especially when, it's relievers, especially when they're rentals. So I still don't love it, but I am hopeful that them giving up their 2 pitching prospects says, I don't care about necessarily what their ability is. More so, I just care about what it says if this team is like, we do have a plan to address our rotation going forward. Like we're ready for that. If they don't, okay, that means that we're all in on basically this year and next year. I mean, we'll see. The last point, though, I think is the most important, which is that Lesko and Snelling have fallen off a little bit, which is true. He's still ranked as a top 44 sort of prospect. Lesko, I believe, was in the 70s last time I checked. Lesko's a project. I think Robbie Snelling could be a guy come next year. And he actually had a really good start in Double-A the other day, tallying up, I think, 6 strikeouts. So he could still be a guy. I thought Snelling would be the untouchable one because I thought that he would make an impact later. I was okay with getting rid of Lesko because I think it's going to take more time. But more on your point of them being a little bit down in their value lately, I'm more looking at, in fairness, Padres prospects that they've given up, especially pitching-wise, haven't always been amazing. Mackenzie Gore is slowly getting there. He's been very good as of late. But in fairness to you, sir, yeah, Padres pitching prospects haven't been awesome, and Preller's done a really good job at selling high. I mean, remember Luis Patino? That was like a top 40 prospect in baseball at one point, the Padres' top pitching prospect next to Mackenzie Gore, and he came out, and I think he was mostly injured. Personally, I don't know exactly what he would have been, but he was just injured a whole bunch and he fell apart. So yes, Preller has been able to sell high. I get it, but even still, I'm a little bit critical, but I still respect your point very much, good sir. At Paul De Barros NC7EH, I don't know. When do you think the Padres will take a chance on someone like Tirso or Nelius? I feel like it's worth a shot over Bryce Johnson at this point. So this is a great question. A lot of great questions this week. I think that I don't know if Tirso's quite ready, but I will say, compared to what they have is the important thing here. Bryce Johnson is hitting 178. He's got a 482 OPS. He's able to draw a decent walk every now and then. I'm not overly familiar on Tirso or Nelius's defensive capability, but in terms of right now, in El Paso AAA, he's got a 918 OPS, and last year he had a 783 OPS. Now, again, I don't like talking too much about prospects because frankly, there's a lot of prospects that have decent OPS sort of numbers, and I'm just not an expert in that regard. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. It's not like we're asking them to replace, even David Peralta. While David Peralta hasn't been excellent at all for the Padres, he's at least a veteran. 603 OPS is a lot better, and he has come through with some big hits so far. And like I said, he's had moments before. This is a guy who's been a hitter in the major leagues, and he's a veteran, which is always good. But for Bryce Johnson, I just haven't seen anything. And it feels like a lot of times they're using him as like a pinch runner, or they're just kind of having a pitch hit for him. I think a couple times Campizano has pinch hit for him. So I wouldn't mind that. I think it's worth looking into for sure. But maybe it's also going to depend on what Tatis's health is. But 320 average right now, 388 on base, 530 slugging, maybe it is worth a shot. The kid's young, he's 24 years old. Why not, right? But maybe there's some other angle to this. Maybe there's some options that they don't want to waste on him. You can't just rush everybody up and send him back down. We'll have to see. And maybe, God forbid, they're learning from their past where you don't want to call a prospect and then just send them back down immediately after they struggle, or in this case, if they succeed, but then Tatis comes back. So that's what I think, though, but I'm kind of with you, unless I'm missing something, and Lord knows I could be missing something. Next comment from @Koji_H says, I feel like I'm being spoiled how well they're playing right now. Last time they won a Dodgers season series since 2010. Seriously? LFGSD. Let's effing go San Diego. I agree 100% with you, good sir. It feels great, and I'm going to repeat it over and over, even if this Padres team misses the playoffs. Although at this point, that would be devastating just because of how well they've been playing for a while now. In general, just this season has been so much better than the nightmare fest of last year. It cannot be emphasized enough. I think the Braves fans are suffering a little bit of a similar case where their entire lineup has been underperforming, or in their case, Acuna being out for the year, Ozzie Albies being out for a while. But even still, you look at that team and you're like, wow, it was like 7 guys needed to underperform in that lineup for them to be bad, and they've all underperformed. So that's frustrating. But last year was just a hellscape, man. And honestly, even just for Jurickson Profar, this season's been worth it. So important thing to remind you all, this season's so much better than last year, and always keep that in. At Teresa Chance 5170 says, still confused why Padres didn't land Flaherty. Any insight? In my opinion, Dodgers got him cheap. Now, I will say the Dodgers did give up one of their top 3 prospects in the trade. I just think Preller couldn't quite do it, and maybe the reason they prioritized bullpen was because that was something that they knew, and they looked and said, you know what, maybe some of our minor league guys aren't ready. Alec Jacob can only do so much. While maybe they said, you know what, I trust in Musgrove and Darvish, especially the former, who apparently was touching a little bit high in the velo. The velo looked good in his rehab start the other day, so that's a good sign. And maybe they trusted that, and maybe they trusted Perez, right? Maybe that's what it was. And maybe the Tigers were asking for a little bit too much. Maybe they were asking for Salas or DeVries. But for me, it's more, I think the Padres decided, we know that we can't just have any bullpen additions from within. But we do think that we can get Musgrove, Darvish, Perez, like one of those guys or two of those guys we think we can do something with. We have options. We have some hope there. I think they decided, we don't have any hope in the bullpen. So we'll have to see. And if you prioritize the bullpen, or if you get a starting pitcher instead of prioritizing the bullpen, then it's possible that Jack Flaherty goes 6 innings, strikes out 10, gives up only 1 earned run, but then the bullpen's still bad, so it wastes the starters. I think that's what they decided. I think they decided it'll be easier to find find starters over some over finding some good relievers. At least that's what I think. I could be dead wrong though, but at least that's what I think their thinking was. But we'll just have to see. But man, some great questions this week, guys. Very much appreciate it. Some final things before we close out this episode. Again, I'm going to try for the late games from this season onward, for late games. So not today's game. Not tomorrow's game, which starts at 6:40 Eastern time, but some of the later games, the 9:45 ones, whenever those end up coming up. Next Monday they play the Pirates at 9:40 in San Diego. I'm going to start trying to do live episodes where you guys can all come in. You'll see the YouTube notifications come on, and you could come in and submit questions right then and there as I do the episode, and we can kind of have a chat. I think that'd be a fun way, because I know that you guys might be, especially on the West Coast, you have to wait until the morning for the episode to come out, which still trying to at least do that for you. I haven't always been good at that, but I want to have you just a little bit more interactive. We can have post-game reactions. And frankly, having a live show might give me more energy because it gets late sometimes and I'm a little bit tired. So that'll give me extra motivation to stay awake, wide-eyed and ready to rumble. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm planning to do for the later games. So just keep an eye out for that, especially starting next Monday. And then keep an eye out tomorrow, speaking of the Pirates, for my crossover with Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about the Skeens versus Jackson Merrill thing. Why not? Maybe he'll have some stats on hand. Maybe we'll get into a debate. I don't know. We're going to preview that series. And of course, guys, talk about a whole lot more as the San Diego Padres hope to make the playoffs and hope to continue the good vibes, because that's what matters the most, folks. But until that next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies, take care.